Ooh, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, sheep.
How are you dinguses doing?
Flying high,
Love it.
living large.
Yeah. How are you guys recovering after this week's events?
What's been going on?
Oh, what's been going on? Well, let's get into it.
Okay. I did a little bit of audio adjusting. I want to make sure.
Yeah. How do we sound?
Everybody sounds great today, this morning.
How's our pretty creamy? Let's take our shot of ranch before we kick this sucker off.
I always put ranch in my coffee in the morning.
That should be actually a nice new ceremonial part of our pod mornings.
Cheers.
Cheers. A shot of ranch.
Yeah. It's like
I
what
think-
Mariah Carey does every time before she sings.
I think it would Kim Kardashian style, a big ass and tits break the internet if ranch dressing came out with a coffee mate style mixer.
Oh my God. Like an International Delights, like ranch flavor.
Oh,
I
love
love that. Dude,
thinking-
speaking of which, Kim and Kanye.
Oh
Big-
man,
big
can we?
break.
All right.
Lots to cover.
Wow,
Lots.
where do we start? So
Where do
this
we
is
even start?
Did You Reddit, a weekly podcast about the internet by way of Reddit, the front page of the internet. My name is It's Your Dad.
I'm Dog Boobs.
My free day in the
It is.
studio.
It's 2021, guys. Wow.
Yeah.
What
Happy
a-
New Year.
We
What a
survived.
rousing beginning to the year. So this is hilarious because we're recording this on Friday morning, the 8th. So on Wednesday morning, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, this is the craziest news day. Kim and Kanye are breaking up, and Kanye is having sex with Jeffree Star.
Yep.
And that's part of the reason.
Wait, I didn't know that.
You didn't
Oh,
know
yeah.
that part? Oh my goodness. This is the craziest part of the whole goddamn story. So let me actually I do have an appropriate meme for it. Let me see if I can find it.
And this is just
Yeah.
a warning to all you before you set foot in Calabasas. Stuff like this happens in Calabasas. You know,
Exactly.
a lot of people say they want to move there, but I'm
Part
just
of the
saying
Calabasas experience.
there's
God.
a scene and you get sucked in.
Oh, let me just tell my dog to shut up.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
Jeffree
this
Star,
is-
what a hot piece of something, you know?
What a confusing piece of something. Like I don't understand what, and listen, I am not transphobic. I have absolutely no problem with Jeffree Star as Jeffree Star, right? But I don't really understand the appeal. That's my deal, you know?
If you're not
Yeah,
transphobic, you have to fuck him or her. What do we say? What's the
Them.
Them.
them? Oh, it's a
Fuck.
them.
So
Okay,
this
y-
was I
Jeffree
saw this on
Star-
Twitter.
Jeffree Star's also a shit. Like
Oh,
I
like little dickhead, I know.
we have I'm saying the same, like obviously no issues with the transgender piece of this, but Jeffree Star is an extremely problematic person and actually I think has had a lot of different controversies around race in the past.
Oh yeah, huge
my
anti-Semite,
question, too.
huge racist.
Not
Very
good.
confusing. Very confusing person across the board. But we woke up on Wednesday morning. We get the news that this meme sums it up perfectly. I think this is from Arthur, right? I don't know. It's one of the classic kind of meme formats. But how the hell did we go from Kanye West fucking Jeffree Star to Civil War and it's barely 2 p.m. on Wednesday? That was the experience of Wednesday.
What a fucking day.
What a day! We're like 8 days into 2021. I mean,
Oh
this is
my
a lot of
God.
this is a lot of the juice. This is a lot of what people are saying. Is they're like, like 2020.
2020 part 2.
2020 was so dramatic and so brutal, and then and everybody's like, cheers to the new year,
Here we go again.
and it just comes out with a fucking bang. It's so wild. But anyway, so we're not going to talk. We are going to talk a little. I do want us to talk a little bit about some of what we've seen by way of the internet, as with what happened on Wednesday. There wasn't a ton of bloodshed, so I think it's still okay to laugh about it. It is not. It's
One
like
person
a
was
laughing matter,
killed.
but not. Yeah.
One woman was shot in the neck and died in the Capitol.
Yeah.
Well, there have been 5 people now that died. One of which
5. Oh
was
wow.
well,
So-
but one was shot in the Capitol. Another a policeman died from their injuries. I had read, but then 3 people died from unrelated medical causes that were related in the sense that they were there and probably
like
heart
how
attacks, stuff like
like
that.
how 300,000 people have died from COVID, but it's actually only 6 because the other people were already having heart attacks and dying.
Ooh,
That's deep tube stuff. That is deep tube stuff. Okay.
it's a hot take from the deep tube. That's actually probably the least hot take from deep tube. I feel like that's like
That's an
the
old
kinda
take. Yeah.
standard. Yeah. So actor Dr. Spachaman coming through here.
Ooh, nice.
So this actually did happen. Somebody tased themselves. From what I heard, they tased themselves in the balls. Actually, I have another image that represents this fact.
That is
can
Antifa
find it.
commitment.
That's a fun little idea.
Yeah. So how do I bring this up?
Back when we were kids, we used to tase ourselves in the balls, not at rallies. We would just do it. These guys
You're
are doing it at
supposed to
rallies.
tase yourself in the balls. That's how you make sure you don't get a heart attack.
This is the tweet that references this. So apparently, a guy accidentally tasered himself in the balls and then died of a heart attack while trying to steal a painting. And if we can't all come together over how hilarious that is, we may be beyond hope. Which
He was trying to steal like
it's very inspiring.
a portrait of Taft and had a heart attack.
Yeah,
Totally.
That's the number one portrait everyone's going for. And
Wow,
and
Taft. That's what I go for.
that Taft.
The Taft portrait is at the top tower of the Capitol, at the very peak.
So this is. I mean, we don't need to go into what happened on Wednesday because it was, obviously, like, for fuck's sake. I mean, it was the biggest news of a generation, essentially. So not worth doing that. But I do think it's worth briefly discussing some of the things that I think are a byproduct of it. I mean, there is just like an apex. We are an apex meme land right now.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, very nice, right? Like, I don't feel like anybody's taken any time to get to the memes, and it really accommodates a lot of them. A whole range. I think it goes from everything from like full like internet lollery, where it's a lot less meaningful stuff, to things that are a little bit like, ooh, if you peel that onion, you see something that maybe is deep tube related.
There seems, I'm just getting into the deep tube. I feel like you got into it last night. Haven't slept yet, Dad. Is that about true?
Dude, I'm living on the adrenaline of the Donald Trump concession deep fake video.
That wasn't real.
Yo, I don't agree. I don't know where I stand anymore, man. I don't even know what to think. It sucks.
We talked about
confident in my views. I don't know how I feel about anything anymore.
Exactly what we talked about when we did our deep fake episode.
Yeah, like 18 months ago, we were like, politicians they're going to get deep tubed.
Yep.
And people are going to make speeches that never happened. That's going to, and this is the first kind of big one, I'd say.
Yeah, man. It didn't happen.
Yeah, and this is, so I guess because we are recording this on Friday morning, I don't know when this news will have come out. So there's a video posted. So here's my thought process going through this video, right? Let me see if I can pull up the video itself. Oh, I do. I already have the video queued up, obviously.
Clearly.
Late last night.
Well done.
And I see you sent something over to me, Idler, so I'll pull that up in a second. So this is the video from Trump. It was posted on the White House official YouTube channel. So I got
banned everywhere else.
Because he's banned everywhere else. I got sent this by a friend who was just like, "Is this a deep fake?" And he was like kidding when he said that. But the reason he asked is because it's so he concedes he acts like a normal fucking president. He's like, there's going to be a peaceful
Yes.
transition of power. You people
The
are
most
idiots.
normal speech he's ever given.
It's totally normal. And then I start looking through the comments, and all the comments, like the comments are a range, but a lot of them, oh shit, did this video get taken down? Let's see.
Oh, the
Maybe
conspiracy
No,
deep.
That would deepen.
that'd be crazy. So it was we get a lot of people that are like Trump till I die, but a lot of like, ooh, this is fake, 100% fake. It's a deep fake, right? And I was just kind of like, oh, fascinating. We also have a lot of comments that are like, declassify everything. I'm seeing a lot. I don't understand where that's coming from.
Me neither.
I try to do a little bit of research. From what I gather, it's Trump had mentioned that he would literally declassify everything on his way out of the office. It was just like one of his weird, lofty claims. So everybody's like, hell yeah, aliens. But then you have a lot of people who are like, Clinton's, a lot of the kind of standard conceits.
Right.
But anyway, so the more I keep seeing all these posts about deepfakes, I was like, huh, what is that all about? So I did a little research on conspiracy, and it's a very, very popular post right now on conspiracy. Not the most popular recently. And conspiracy in general is like absolutely fucking going off right now, obviously. Sorry, dog, I dropped you off for a second.
No worries.
So conspiracy is essentially proposing, and they have all this proof that the Trump concession video is indeed a deep fake. Let me pull it up.
I mean, clearly, Well, I mean, he's never made a video like this. He hasn't ever conceded anything. I don't think. Why now?
Right. So this is their big proof, right? Is there's a frame in the middle of the video and then a frame at the very end of the video where his face is absolutely identical.
What?
And this is one of those things where you're just like, I don't know, maybe that's a phenomenon. Like,
yeah.
I mean, if someone were to do a deep fake of us talking right now, I'm sure that they would be able to find a way to match up my facial expressions.
Right. I look like this a lot.
All I'm seeing here is that his face is in the exact same position, but his body has moved, right? So is it possible that your face can hit the same exact position throughout the course of a speech? Yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really prove anything. It's just coincidentally, you might think, oh, this is impossible that your face could look exactly the same twice in 20 minutes, but I don't know.
Right.
It happens.
But a lot of people are saying, look at where his neck meets his shirt. Like that's the main thing they talk about. So if you look at
I'm a big time Photoshopper, and I will attest to that. I mean, that's when I'm pulling someone's face off to throw it on a goof. That's the hardest part, is hitting that neckline,
dude.
And you've convinced me. This is a deep fake.
Fucking odd, dude. It's very odd, but it just goes to show that we are now at this time where the mere we have opened this fucking Pandora's box. And this past week, it was like, and we're not going to spend the whole time talking about this because we actually, before this pod, so this is kind of, this shit is happening in real time. Last night, we were talking about this stuff. We want to talk about anti-work part 2, as we had suggested on part 1, which was we did before New Year's. And today we want to primarily talk about the literature that they consider the required readings in the anti-work subreddit. But we are going to do a little bit of a deep dive over the next couple of weeks about some of the things that are popping up as a byproduct of this, because I personally think they're pretty fascinating. And they're it is like Dr. Spakaman in our chat right now had mentioned how the mere speed by which the memes have been popping up is extraordinary, which I agree with. But then also, for as many memes as there are, it's also the conspiracies, the organized conspiracies, and I think that the like conspiracies that are not organized. Like, I mean, another one that's popping up right now that's like very popular is the idea that, you guys have all seen this woman who, like, they pushed me down, they maced me, right? Like,
yes.
What's her story? I haven't followed up. I was
Elizabeth from
installing.
Knoxville, but evidently she has an onion in her towel, is what they claim.
Oh, for crying, you mean?
For crying, for
That sounds
fucking throwing face.
horrible.
Well, she's just a good influencer, I say. She just knows how to influence. That's
Wow, these crisis actors are getting good with their
I know,
onion
man.
props and method acting.
It's just wild times. But we're gonna do a little bit more of a like internet.
That was also a
internet
popular
fallout.
death weapon when I did time in the clink. You'd wrap an onion in a sock and beat a man to death.
And beat a man
So
to
maybe
death.
she was just using that as a an affordable weapon that you
Yeah.
can get and any local Whole Foods 365.
And after that, you just
Love
emptied the sock out into a skillet and caramelized that crushed onion.
Did you say what weapon?
Yeah,
I'm just eating Denver omelet over here.
I'm just putting caramelized onions on my burger.
It's kind of the perfect crime.
I mean, what a time.
What a
to be alive. I
time.
mean, we were just given just so much for this beginning of the week. But anyway, the Idler, tell us more about this thing you just sent me.
Well, I thought this is something that I noticed in the moment and kind of struggled with, and it's the perfect way to transition into anti-work. So this post, possibly the most unsettling thing to me about the attempted coup the other day, is the way we all just keep working, doing our routine activities in the midst of a massive unraveling at the government level. We should all be recovering, processing with our community, caring for each other, not working. So something I experienced, I'm not sure if you guys did, is absolutely no one at my job even mentioned that this was going on at all. It was work, as if nothing was going on. And I think it really fucked with my head a little bit. I had a really hard time yesterday. It was just absolutely surreal to me that on the news, we're watching the Capitol looking like the end of a Will Smith like Independence Day movie, and like I'm fucking around on my laptop trying to get client approval on some fucking bullshit, and I'm like, this is not okay. Like, this just blows my mind. Like, this isn't good for our brains. This isn't good for like our spirits as human beings. Like, how can you just put your head down while your entire country's crumbling around you?
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I didn't have the resistance necessarily. Like, I think our company was pretty like seemingly pretty self-aware of what was going on, and government was like aware of like how dramatic it was. But I also noticed that where I had a bunch of shit I had to get done, and I was just staring into the abyss all day. Like, I was like, I just could not fucking be bothered to do anything. And I was trying very hard, but it was just like not fucking working. And that is exactly why. It was just like, it's hard. I mean, this feels like the issue with a lot of work stuff. And this is, like you said, the continuation of the anti-work is like, the second you understand the futility of the task at hand as compared to like other things in particular, it presents the anti-work problem pretty profoundly, you know?
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I had experienced and probably what you had experienced. And it feels like, yeah, I mean, I had pulled that quote as well. And I'm like, yeah, cause I'm like, man, I don't like, I guess this whole event reminded me of 9/11. It's very different, you know, but it's also, I'm not like a particularly patriotic person, but and you know, all of us are kind of I'd like to think we're all generally untethered to federal politics, right? Like, none of us are like engaged in the federal political system, but it's just the feeling, like, it just goes to show that every level of stability that we use to anchor ourselves to reality, even, you know, our home, our family, our friends, you know, all the way down to even the national government, is a form of like stabilizing anchor that we all use,
that we take for granted, kind of.
that we totally take for granted. And you know, I remember with 9/11, I was in 8th grade, So, I was probably like 13 or 14. No, I was a freshman in high school. So I was like 14, 15. And I remember like not really being able to register the extent of what was going on, but I remember feeling like there was I remember feeling the tragedy of it really intimately, where I was like, oh man, this feels like everybody's worried at once. Oh, I've never seen that before. I guess this is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And it made me, I didn't like lose sleep over it probably, but it made me feel like unsettled. And I think as an adult experiencing this, I feel profoundly more unsettled because of okay, you know what I think it is? It's the future. It's like the fact that this is so ingrained in what will happen in the future. In the
Yeah.
same way that 9/11, when that happened, you were like, the future will never be the thing that I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, it's like, oh, the future is not going to be what I would thought it was going to be, because a line has been crossed that you can't uncross.
Yep.
And it just like, and then because of that futility of the sensation of work, all of a sudden you're just like, what am I even doing?
Right. Especially
do
for
I do
people with quote bullshit jobs that like no one's living or dying by our hand. How am I supposed to like buckle down and focus on, basically like pushing pieces around a board so that the company I work for continues to make money and I make my paycheck. But I mean, none of what I'm doing matters. And so like when you really look at what's going on in the world, especially when like something like along the lines of a 9/11, like that was such an insane moment in history. Like that's going to, like you said, be really impactful on like moving forward, how it shapes our world, especially like American society and government. Like who knows? But like
our relationship with America in general. I mean, that's what it is. It's
America,
like I like suddenly have a different relationship with my perception of America as an identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the 9/11 thing, is like we were attacked. America was attacked on American soil, and this felt like America was attacked on American soil.
Yeah, like Civil War for real.
Yeah.
Well, by Antifa plants, though, right?
Oh right, yes.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I've been going into the deep tube a little, and that's kind of the main story out of the deep tube, is that was all us, the raid on the Capitol. May we never forget January 6th was all a plant.
Oh god,
the Antifa to over and this is kind of news to me, and honestly, until Dad, you mentioned the shit last night, I was like, oh yeah, I guess everything is a conspiracy. Let me check this out. Now I'm convinced because I spent 10 minutes on the internet.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like the big theories are because there's the Buffalo Man, who just has a phenomenal physique, cool tattoos, kick-ass helmet.
You're talking about Q Shaman, right?
Q Shaman, yeah. His name is what his name is. His name's out there now. Jake Angeli, 32. So the stuff's coming out about this guy. Like he was seen in a global warming rally like a couple years ago. There's a picture of him wearing the exact same outfit, and he was like pro global warming, which doesn't seem Q or Trumpy. So that's like one thing people are saying that is like, he's a plant for Antifa. And so like he's easy to spot, right? Because of the hat. And there's other people that they're matching their photos to other Antifa style rallies over the last like year and a half. And so there's some interesting stuff there. There's stuff with like the police open the barricades and let these people in. You're like, what's up with that? The police in on this? Feels like a Nancy Pelosi Antifa plant thing, right? And so like all you need is like 2 or 3 of those things, and you're like, all right, I'm listening. I'm definitely listening.
What's going on here?
And then you have a mob of people that were there anyway,
right?
And now you got a recipe for fucking disaster.
Now you got gumbo.
Dude.
But even with that, like even talking about that, it sounds so. So in terms of the anti-work thing, it's such a funny thing because even the conspiracies, which maybe this is where we all go down with the ship, and we join like Roy's like boat caravan into the on the way to
in our water world future.
Yeah,
exactly. But this is but like how do you work when you're going, oh, the government is you know what I mean? It's just distracting. I guess that's the thing. It's like going back to the anti-work thing. It's like life is distracting from work.
Right.
And
So yeah,
Vice versa.
right.
I put in a new front door on
Nice.
January 6th, the day the United States fell. And I was doing some construction with a guy that does some work for me, who really knows what he's doing, and I help him. I become his assistant.
Cool.
And,
Apprentice.
I'm his apprentice, and it's good work. It's outdoors, banging some nails, measuring, cutting. I was outside all day. Most of the day, I would like come in and sort of check my email, but not really. And I basically ignored this until like 5 p.m. You know,
Yeah.
when a construction man gets home and cracks a couple of Modelo's and kicks off his boots, you know. And I said, "Oh, what's going on?" And then obviously the news, right?
Right.
And the difference between my general vibe and everyone else who I talked to that day was like, people were like, "Oh my God, the world's over." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I got a kick-ass front door." Look, I was like so happy about my new, like, it was like level, and I was like,
How
I
nice.
was so
What
excited.
color is it?
Well, it's currently just primed white, so I have to paint it, which I'm gonna do like almost a black style color.
Ooh,
So
I like that.
that's like weekend work.
Yeah.
But man, like sitting in front of your, I guess what I'm getting at, sitting in front of your computer, sitting in front of the news, sitting in front of this stuff as it unfolds, which it's been unfolding now for I think since Bill Clinton got that blowy, since Bill got that blowy in 2006.
Oh, yeah.
Or call it 9/11, right? I mean, this has been nonstop in your face. And man, it's like a real bummer to like sit and consume all this stuff, whether or not I don't know. I had a realization. I was like, man, maybe I should just become like a carpenter off the news. Like these guys, a lot of these guys don't know the news. They don't have emails.
Yeah.
seem pretty happy. I don't know if that's checking out of society or can you do anything anyway about it? And
Yeah.
Well,
like accepting the futility of some things and then checking out.
Well, we're not in DC. We're not in politics. We are not billionaires that can create influence. In some of the articles in anti-work I was reading last night we're kind of hinting at this. It's like your middle class job just kind of keeps you stuck in this place where you can't really affect change. You're just running on this treadmill to stay in the same place. And can you do anything about it? Like, you know, you have no influence over politics. You can't necessarily make change. You have one vote every 4 years or 2 years or whatever. Like, and
yeah,
it's like,
it's interesting.
Is it better to just like, you know, sand some wood and be happy, worry about your personal happiness and stop trying to like control a country that you can't control or something like that. I don't know.
Well, there's some interesting behavioral things I think in that where, you know, a lot of the people. So, without couching this in some sort of classist thing, because I think that I'm from this area, I understand this to some degree. We're seeing this interesting thing as a byproduct of this too, where a lot of the people who were seen at the rally, mostly the ones who were obviously had breached the gates, are now being doxxed online so that they can be told on to the FBI and then whatever. And, you know, with the doxing process, you're seeing their jobs, you're seeing what they do. And, you know, you're seeing a lot of people who are like laborers, for lack of a better term. Not all of them. I mean, you are seeing like lawyers, you're seeing like the whole wide swath, but like some of the primary ones you're seeing are kind of like, you know, doing laborious grunt work. And I've been thinking a little bit about that because I think you're right. I think that there's like a joy, like that's, I mean, in our text thread last night, I kind of said it half joking, but actually very serious, which I'm just like, I just want to like go fishing somewhere and just fucking see the water and like, you know, beyond the ridge line of the trees, everything is on fire and you can see you can smell the corpses a little bit in the background, but like it's like on the lake and everything is great. Right.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that I don't like what would happen if we all distance ourselves enough from the internet and distance ourselves enough from desk work to where suddenly we will come. This is, I think, maybe the enigma, right? It's like you come back to the internet and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to get my news today. And then like you click on something and you go, holy shit. Because you have taken away your literacy, your internet literacy or your digital media literacy to where you can't you can't differentiate between a false conspiracy, for instance, and news, because
there's
the
no more
world has.
news. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also it's like, things change in such an insane, dramatic way. If like you come back and you turn on Fox News, you're just like, holy shit. And then they mention something because you're not paying attention and you don't follow the internet logic. And they mention some fucking bullshit about like Lynn Wood, or like one of these Q conspiracy things. And then all of a sudden you're down the rabbit hole and you're like, of course it's true. I saw it on the internet. And because you're outside of the internet literacy, I don't know, skill set, you go, obviously it's true. I saw it online. And I think that's a little bit of the problem. So I don't know. I guess going back to the anti-work thing, let's get into these articles. Let's get into these primary sources. I think they're important. That is ultimately the point of this. But I think that there's a lot of the big theme of anti-work is like what happens when you're at your desk all the time.
Yeah,
Part of that is like being at a desk means being connected, and like is it good or is it bad? I don't know, right?
I said it before, but like I still feel like we're in that stage where 14-year-olds smoking on ships and airplanes is considered good for you. In the internet and media I think we're still early stages where we're like, yeah, tobacco cures all. Why don't you just have a puff of these Lucky Strikes? And it's the same with media. It's like, yeah, watching the news means you're a good citizen and you're informed. And it's like, well, I think we're coming around the bend where we're sort of starting to say like being online and watching CNN, Fox, MSNBC is kind of like eating fast food 3 meals a day. And it's bad for your health. It's bad for your mental health. And I think enough people are kind of get that. And the internet is the same, I think, but you can sort of there's sort of the millennial version of CNN and Fox News through whatever portal you're on.
Fascinating point. I mean, honestly, like that is a really, really cool idea that this is the beginning of a like.
Well, the shame. I think we need to like.
Great example.
Yeah, what they did with tobacco is they made it shameful to smoke, right? Secondhand smoke, thirdhand smoke kills babies next door. Remember those commercials where like there's a commercial of the guy smoking and like the smoke goes through a vent and it creeps through a building and then it comes into a baby's crib and the baby then he's like, I'm hooked on smokes and I'm 0. So like it became shameful to smoke. And so I think the same should happen with certain kinds of food, soda, fast food shit that's like literally killing humans. And then the same with the internet. Like, how do you do it? I don't know.
I don't know. It's it's a fascinating. I mean, this is a conversation.
I'm available. I can make some sick ass ads, dude. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, that is like we think about the concept of people smoking. We watch Mad Men and we're just like, can you fucking believe they're smoking inside
in an elevator?
That is insane. But like that was a time period where it was like I don't know, but like it seems like people are just like, yeah, I don't care. And I think, now I think hopefully in 10 years, 20 years, 6 months, we can look back and go, can you believe that people used to blank on the internet? Right. But it's a different model because it's not a like if it's the consumption of information, and that's such.
But we might be addicted to the feeling it gives us, which is, I used to listen to the Daily like every day and was pretty excited about it. It was like my fun morning routine, and until recently, really COVID, the last 3 months of COVID, like every story was extremely like empathetically melancholy. It was like today we're going to tell one story about a woman who works in Walmart whose grandfather died of COVID and nobody could say goodbye. You're like, I don't fucking want to listen to that shit, dude. I get it. It sucks. People are dying, but I'm like, that was every day. I'm like, I'm just out. I'm just going to be like, I'm out. And so I sort of have bailed out from the Daily. I used to like it. I don't like it anymore. Just because it's a bummer, man. It's fucking a bummer.
I don't blame you. Like,
so I think we're gonna start, and then I'm going, okay, I have time. I have X amount of time before I die. Like, do I want to use it getting bummed out? or do I want to use it like putting on a sick front door?
Right.
Well, and
So I think you're gonna have to make a choice, is what I'm saying.
We knew we were gonna do this today too, or I knew we were gonna do this because it's just impossible to not talk about this past week. And like I said, we're probably gonna talk about it a little bit in the next.
But we'll bend it into anti-work too. It's gonna go to how do you spend your time in your life working? Like, is it worth this kind of work for you, or
yeah, that's what I was gonna say is it's kind of interrelated because you in the same way that how do I want to spend my time. Do I want to spend my time in the perpetual consumption or pursuit of bummer knowledge, or do I want to do something else? And I think that's the same enigma that I think the anti-work attitude ultimately surrounds, which is like the antithesis of leisure and the idea of like the phenomenon of nothing work and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into the main posts that this sub. No, and if you hadn't listened to episode 1, I would encourage you to listen to it. Most of it is about us kind of getting into the mindset of the anti-work and talking about some of the not really talking about some of the posts, but talking about some of our personal experience and around some of the posts. But as it pertains to this one, because we just kind of ran out of time and we think that there's pretty important stuff, we wanted to get into some of the kind of required reading of anti-work. And yeah, so Dog, did you which one do you guys want to start with? You guys want to start with a radical shift and how we view jobs?
Hell yeah. Let me pull that one up. A radical shift and how we view gerbs. That's a really good one to start with, actually. Here's the little anti-work clip art. Look at that.
Oh, yeah,
wow. I love it. Over a decade into the 21st century, we're as work obsessed as ever. In fact, probably more than we were a decade ago. So this article is really interesting because it kind of goes over how this all kind of started with the indoctrination of the idea that work is in and of itself a virtue. So this is like goes back all the way to like from when we went from an agricultural society to an industrialized society, when like the Protestant work ethic was pushed really hard and used to motivate workers and justify punishment. And they would whip and imprison idlers.
What year was that about?
18 was it the early 1800s or
the revolution? I think was I mean, it depends on where.
Yeah, well, like 1840s towards
Nigeria.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's about the time. Yeah, Industrial Revolution, Protestants, work ethic, and then also, like the puritanical stuff was kicking off then. So it was like, on top of working all the time, it was, and you're not allowed to have fun or enjoy yourself or like go to those like opium orgies anymore. It was a real bummer time.
And it's like it's all about work as obedience, and like you look at the first virtue you learn as a child, and this is in the article, is obeying your parents, especially performing tasks that you don't enjoy. So chores like cleaning the table and like, maybe this is indoctrination, but for me, I'm like, I see an inherent virtue in learning how to clean up after yourself. Like, I get that.
Oh my God. I think about this all the time with my kid who's 4. This is like, all I do.
It's good to learn that. But later on, it's like that virtue is exploited, and it might be exploited by parents, even when you're teaching it. Like, go clean up my room. I took a shit all over it. Like, so there's some horrible parents out there that would do that. So later as adults, we're paid to obey our employers, and that's what work is. So work and virtue are connected in our brains.
Yes. And we, like I do with our kid, it's like we're trying to teach him to listen to people, to have some sort of like organization in his life, clean up his room, like some sort of stuff like, he doesn't want to do it. And you sort of have to like coax him into it.
Yeah.
And then I do think about this. I'm like, am I just preparing him to listen to a boss when he's like 23? And then that boss will just like make him make more deep fake videos of whoever the president is then or something like it, or you obviously want them to set them up for like independence and think for yourself, man, be you. But it's like, what kind of worker are you producing? Will they ever be able to get a job? Do they become spoiled worker brats who can't get hired because they want to be the president of Apple when they're out of high school? Oh man, so it's a tricky parenting question, but
that is really hard because like it's something that we all like most of us, I'm imagining, it's ingrained in us as people too. Like, I mean, it's hard for me to separate the idea of the morality behind like being a hard worker, you know? Like you don't want to be a lazy good for nothing, but at the same time it's like, you know, you look at how that extends to how people view homeless people or people experiencing homelessness or people who are poor or people who are working jobs that don't get paid a lot. And they view it almost like that's your moral failing because you didn't work hard enough to get to a CEO position. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. So that's part of the problem that this article describes is this is a great pulled quote from Bertrand Russell, is that immense harm is caused by the belief that work is virtuous.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is that was I was going through this one last night, and this one was really compelling because you know you are seeing a lot of like social psychology, and I think this is part of why I'm actually glad that we talked a little bit about the kind of like Capitol uprising this past week as it pertains to this, is because it doesn't necessarily follow the same logic, but there's a little bit of the same thing at work, it seems to me, which is the social psychology of our raising is in direct confluence and conflict with some of the things that are drivers in contemporary society.
Oh man.
So, you know, we have jobs that we like. I think, especially, you know, with like liberals, and you know, this is also about the psychology of the coronavirus. Like, there's a lot of things where we go, no, you're not supposed to do that. How could anybody do that? Doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody do that?
Right.
And then it just fucks with people. And then you think about that through the lens of like work, where you go, what do you mean you don't want or have a job? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Let's play a game.
Let's
play a little role play because
Love
based on what you just said, I just had a thought because you're my boss. You're thinking about hiring me because you see something in me, which is
right.
Let's just play make believe is what I said.
Cool.
So you say, hey, oh no, I'm your friend from high school and I'm not working. You're my you got a good cushy job.
Cool.
You're making $225.
Hey man, I saw that door the other day. What do you think about doing that door for me?
Yeah, well, you know, I am a very good at everything kind of worker, and I know you're trying to get me to come work for your big fancy firm and make a fat paycheck, but thank you, but I pass. This is when you say, why would you pass? I'm offering you a great job with great benefits and a lot of money. This is what you say to me. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I go, Freed, you can't live on a boat forever, man. Like at some point you're gonna have to decide to start getting a job and, you know, start making money.
How come? Why? Like what are you doing? What's your job? Like what are you doing with your money?
Well, I'm saving it for, you know, when I'm older, I want to like not have to do shit and just, you know.
Oh, cool. Like, what do you do with your money now? Like, what do you spend money on? You know, like what's cool about having money in a job?
I got a Peloton subscription. So
what's that? What's a Peloton again?
Oh, it's a bike. It makes me
how many wheels does that bike have?
2.
Does it have any wheels actually, or is it a fake wheel? Did you bought a $2,500 bike with no wheels? Oh, nice, cool, sick. And have you ridden it up a mountain or anything, or?
No, it stays in my room.
A virtual mountain.
Oh, it doesn't leave the basement. Oh, so you don't actually, it doesn't go anywhere. You bought a $3,000 bike, it doesn't go anywhere with no wheels. Oh, sick, cool. So what? You don't like it outdoors, or?
So you spent $7,000 on a bike that won't go anywhere.
What is the role-playing objective here?
The objective is to, I think when you start asking questions on why people work and make money, I think you can pretty quickly get to the answer of you make money to do things that you could probably do for not that much money.
Right.
And if the goal is to, like, people go fishing a lot with their money. It's like,
Right.
you could just go fishing. I think the goal is like, I think people are stuck in the mindset of, I need to work to make money to buy things that I need because that's what people do. But I guess if you started asking questions, like some of the things that we're trying to get might seem just it just might seem sort of like it doesn't make sense to obtain those things to somebody who just doesn't have the money to go do it. You know, I don't know.
I mean, what you're saying, I think, is a creating a new relationship with capitalism, which again, and this is, I had this fucking argument. Well, it wasn't an argument. I was like, I found myself, my girlfriend and I were kind of talking about this, and it started like any of these things, not about anti-work.
Should we get 2 Pelotons?
But we were talking about the uprising, and then
Robot uprising.
I found myself just fucking ranting about the relationship of capitalism to what this is, and and it was a similar thing in the sense that it was like the root cause all comes down to our like, you have to get to the top or you're not good, you're not worth it, you're not whatever. And I think that part of what you're saying is, I think, creating a different relationship with the consumer model, because I think we work because we feel like the act of working is inherently a thing that when you get the money, you're supposed to use that money to participate in the economy. And then you kind of go, why are you doing that? And people go, because you're supposed to do it. I mean, I hate it. This is so fucking hack, but it is true. Is like, this is the whole fucking Fight Club thing, man, where it's like, Tyler Durden is asking, and he's just like, I was told to get a job, and then I got a job, and I was told to get married, so I got married, and I asked what to do next, and he was like, I don't know, right?
Or I don't know.
Over that fucking
have kids. So that's what I did.
And there is a lot of like, you follow the steps so that you get to the point where you can then what, right? Like, what's the thing? And a part of me is like, I think that we are somewhat dawning on a new era of that. Like, I feel like I've formed a new relationship with buying things lately, which I kind of like, which has been like, I feel like I buy things somewhat deliberately now, where I constantly am doing a little bit of like an opportunity costing in my mind, where I'm just like, is this worth it? Is this not worth it? But I got my girlfriend a really nice fishing pole for Christmas.
How nice.
And when we went out, I gave it to her, but like the act of going to buy it, I don't know if she'll ever use it. Who fucking knows? She said she likes fishing. Who knows if she'll ever use it? But like, it was, I went to this tiny store that was owned by a Korean guy, and I walk in and he's got all this stuff, and it's clearly just like a mom and pop owned place. And I was just kind of like, I'm proud to support this guy.
Yeah.
And his project, and buy a pole as like a community building endeavor. You know what I mean? Like, it was a little bit more like, it wasn't like, I'm gonna buy it because I gotta get it. It was more like, hey man, you know what? I'll take the more expensive one. Because you know what? I appreciate you trying to sell me on it. And I like that this place exists. And I hope you well, man. Like,
I was having, I was having these thoughts while I was reading some of these articles, and it's kind of what you're talking about, but I think we could expand on this idea a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, do you want to share some thoughts on that, Freed?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're kind of at this place where, workers have become robotic sort of automatons. It's just like, do what I say to make my my stock price go up, and you're never really going to be a part of the exchange you just had of a buyer and a seller and a craftsman and a buyer, and like, that's kind of nice. And the worker in the middle doesn't really see any of that. But I was just having this thought, like, it would be nice to, and I think shame is, I'm back to the sort of shame of maybe overusing media. Maybe we can do it with purchase power too. It's where, You know, I almost want to like. I was having the thoughts like, let's start shaming the things we buy too. I mean, we all buy. We're sort of taught to buy like the cheapest thing. You know, it's like, did you get a good deal on it? Yeah. Well, that just means it comes from some poor country built by some slave. Like maybe the new way to think about it is like, did you get something that's a good product that will last a long time, that might not be the best price, but it's the best thing? Like we all buy IKEA crap or whatever, like furniture crap. I build tables. Like the table I'm building my brother, which is sitting behind me, which is getting ready to be shipped. Looks like it's in this box. It took me a couple weeks. He's not getting a table quickly, let's just say.
Right.
And it's definitely not the most affordable way to build a table. But there's a cool story. It's going to like improve our relationship. Every time I go over there, I can brag to all of his friends and be like, hey, feel that? That's solid oak right there.
Right.
So
That's
if we can,
right there.
every time I go over, I turn into a guy from Wisconsin too.
Love it.
It's part of my brotherly shtick. But I changing our relationship with the story of how and why we get things versus just getting things cheaply. And that was one of the thoughts. And I think you were talking about that with your fishing pole. It's like you had an experience with a guy. You probably could have just got it on Amazon for $20 cheaper. It's like, what's $20
right
at the end of the day if you had this experience?
And that's the thing I think that's interesting about our relationship with the capitalist model and the way we like. If you work because you want to spend conscientiously and you want to participate conscientiously in the world and whatever, that's very different, obviously, than having a job so that you can collect your coins and then use those coins eventually. I mean, this is, when my dad died, this was one of my big epiphanies where I was just like, damn, dude, like this guy worked fucking my whole childhood. Like, I mean, great dad, loved my dad. He worked really hard so that he could, support his family and shit, but like worked so hard and then dies a couple years before he really could retire. And then just like all the fucking hard work he had done saving up and whatever so that he could like chill as a retired guy, he like couldn't do because he worked himself to death in a way. So and that was like one of those things I was just like, damn, bro, like that is not interesting. I mean, I really like restaurants are like one of my favorite things to support. Not like support like but I like love going to new restaurants that are like ideas.
Yeah.
That are clearly, built on a concept that then I'm like have no problem spending more money when I feel like I am spending it to help an idea thrive. You know what I mean? Like that's one of my things. But anyway, so back to another article. Unless you guys have anything else you want to contribute to that, I think I would like to move to another article.
I think there's a way to maybe like identify businesses that sort of stand apart from the Amazon models, et cetera, like the non-change, the non-corporates. I don't know. It's this fucking think globally, shop locally bumper sticker to some extent, which is we've kind of seen before. But getting back to it, I mean, and just even dude, I've been seeing that since 1989, dude. Back when they made us take the hatchet off of our Little League Braves shirts because it was racially insensitive. I've been in it since the 80s, guys.
Man. Man.
Yeah, man.
So you're still burned up about that.
But just back, I'm still burned up about losing that hatchet, dude. That thing was so sick. I was like, why do you got to take the hatchet? This is the coolest part about the uniform. It's fucking
take everything else. Just
hatchet. And there was fucking macaroni hippie mom was like, it's racially insensitive. And we're like 9 going like, we fucking love hatchets. Okay. First of all, hatchets rule. Okay. You can throw them at stuff. They're super dangerous. Why are you trying to ruin my childhood, lady?
The hatchet only.
It's a big turning point. But like just seconding that, I think if we identify more of those places, or I don't know. I mean, tell your friends, right? Like this place is cool. It's not a chain. I think people dig it. People want those unique experiences. So let's support it. Let's pump it up.
Cool. So the next one I want to look at, and we probably have time for a couple more. I mean, again, this is we'll never ever be able to totally close the door on this sub because every time we talk about this sub, it just opens up so many different places we can go with it, because it is one of the big contemporary topics of today's society.
Yeah.
And we're always going to be circling around it. I think this is probably going to be a sub we constantly are referencing. But another one that I think is quite interesting is, so on the phenomenon of bullshit jobs, a work rant. Did you guys read this one? Did you guys see this one?
I think this one's so interesting.
This one is very interesting. So I'm going to read a couple of the paragraphs verbatim, because I think they kind of hit some interesting things. And then, Dog, I don't know if you have any anything you want to add to it. But so in the year 1930, John Maynard Keynes, who's one of the most important famous economists of ever, predicted that by century's end, technology would have advanced sufficiently that countries like Great Britain and the United States would have achieved a 15-hour work week. Which would be a dream. There's every reason to believe he was right. In technological terms, we are quite capable of this, and yet it didn't happen. Instead, technology has been marshaled, if anything, to figure out ways to make us all work more. In order to achieve this, jobs have had to be created that are effectively pointless. Huge swaths of people in Europe and North America in particular spend their entire working lives performing tasks they secretly believe do not need to be performed. The moral and spiritual damage that comes from this situation is profound. It's a scar across our collective soul, yet virtually no one talks about it. Which, there's a reason.
TSA. Don't need any of them. Yeah.
So why did Keynes promise utopia? Still being eagerly awaited in the 60s, never materialized. The standard line today is that he didn't figure in the massive increase in consumerism. Given the choice between less hours and more toys and pleasure, we've collectively chosen the latter. This presents a nice morality tale, but even a moment's reflection shows it can't really be true. Yes, we have witnessed the creation of endless variety of new jobs and industries since the 20s, but very few have anything to do with the production of distribution of sushi, iPhones, and fancy sneakers. So what are these new jobs precisely? A recent report comparing employment in the U.S. between 1910 and 2000 gives us a clear picture. And I note one pretty much exactly echoed in the UK. Over the course of the last century, the number of workers employed as domestic servants in industry and in the farm sector has collapsed dramatically. At the same time, professional managerial, clerical, sales, and service workers tripled, growing from 1/4 to 3/4 of total employment. In other words, productive jobs have, just as predicted, been largely automated away, even if you count industrial workers globally, including the toiling masses in India and China. Such workers are still not nearly so large a percentage of the world population as they used to be.
So think of that, like taking a big old banana cream pie, used to be 3/4 of people, of workers, were doing something productive, whether that is being a factory worker, farming, doing something that actually produces a need, or something to feed a need of society. That's turned into 1/4,
Totally.
that is now 1/4, but there are more people working. So they've invented another 3/4 of jobs that are not overtly productive.
And that means you're sitting in front of a computer at a desk instead of on your feet, probably, and that alone has probably added to the fatness of the world and sort of the unhealthy. I think that's probably an exact relationship to how heart disease and all this stuff has gone the same direction. People are just sitting there fucking depressed,
right?
Drinking Coke, eating fucking yummy ass Cheetos. Yummy ass. Period. Just yummy ass. They just eat yummy ass.
Oh, delightful.
But sorry, Dad, if you want to continue, the rest of that is interesting too. But rather than allowing a massive reduction of hours to free the world's population to pursue their own projects, pleasures, visions, and ideas, wouldn't that be nice?
Right.
Like back in the 30s, all of those productive jobs, that was 3/4 of the work we all did. Like if that could be automated so that only 1/4 of working people needed to do that now, what are the rest of us doing? Why aren't the rest of us out doing, jungle cruises? I've wanted to be a jungle cruise host.
Are you talking about spotting koalas or stuff like that? Yeah. Oh, cool.
Or
Yeah,
like going and playing soccer with your kid every day out in the field, or maybe sitting and reading a good book when you want to. Like instead of that, they've decided to instead flood the world with a creation of entirely new industries like financial services, telemarketing, or an unprecedented expansion of sectors like corporate law, academia, health administration, human resources, PR. And those numbers don't even reflect all of the people whose job is to provide administrative, technical, and security support for those industries. Or for that matter, the whole host of ancillary industries that exist because of those people existing, like dog washers or all-night pizza delivery, that only exist because everyone else is spending so much of their time working on the other ones. So that's what the author calls bullshit jobs.
And I would add to that, like sitting on Twitter and other things when you do have the small amounts of free time and just like getting sucked into the typhoon of bullshit.
Yeah.
It's almost like sitting in at a job and responding to worthless emails. It's like it's not time well spent.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting some of the things that you just mentioned there, Dog, as well as it pertains to PR, marketing managers. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we are actively involved in, and I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people that are smart, have college degrees or whatever, are kind of engaged in things like this for some fucking inexplicable reason. But like PR, telemarketing, like some of that shit, those are all designed around creating more demand for the product that you sell so that people consume it more so that there is growth, right? Like that is the purpose of those jobs. Like PR is like, hey, have you heard about this thing that I do? Like telemarketing is like, hey, Mr. Johnson, like this is blank from blank company. Do you want to buy this thing? Have you heard of this thing? And so there's I think
what else grows unconditionally? Tumors, bro.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it is all largely related to. I mean, my big. I might have mentioned this last week. This is just something I talk about a lot. Is I think that the unsustainability of the growth predictive model post industrial revolution, like we got used to the idea that things grow at like a 2 and 3% per year annual basis, and it just like doesn't make any fucking sense. So at a certain point, things just like can't grow at that speed. And then people go, oh shit, but we have to grow at that speed. That's what's expected. How are we going to make things grow at that speed? We need people to tell more people about it. We need people to print more flyers. Well, we need a printer flyer or a flyer printer to help us do that. And then you just kind of create the system, which is, whatever. So this is what this article is really ultimately about. I mean, it's about kind of the anomaly of what a bullshit job really is about and how it kind of came to be and why. And I think, we're kind of coming on crunch time. So I think the last one I think I want to briefly talk about is probably this In Praise of Idleness, the Bertrand Russell piece, because this I think represents a different part of the conversation, which is actually about the, a lot of what we're talking about is like the phenomenon of how we got here. And I think this one is a little bit of like, even if we're here, this is an appreciation of not laziness, rethinking what laziness means and rethinking about what idleness means and how do we calm our minds and calm our like capitalist intentions, so that we can be more idle and more idle instead of lazy, or lazy as an okay thing.
Yeah,
and
like at rest.
Have rest.
Reframing laziness as just being at rest, and why should being at rest be such a radical thing?
Totally. And what I find so interesting about this too is this one came out in 1932. So this just goes to show that this has been a part of the contemporary conversation for a long time. And I think that this is part of the problem, is that it's so built into our systems that even back in the day, like, so Bertrand Russell, I did a little bit of research on Bertrand Russell. He was a Nobel laureate, kind of, polymath philosopher, a logician, just a brain essentially, liberal, socialist, pacifist, and I think he was the kind of person who was very contrarian. I don't know enough about him. I can't speak to him. I don't know if he fucking got Me Too'd or some shit. So I'm not gonna say.
Yeah, he was like
but
anti-Semite and
Yeah, hit
definitely
us up if
molested
he was
everybody.
canceled. We don't know.
But he had some great economic
Ideas.
principles. Bill Cosby's stand-up was good. Doesn't
No,
mean we're pro-raping people.
Bertrand Russell's stuff is canceled. Okay.
Bertrand Russell canceled. All right, so Bertrand Russell. So in praise of idleness, like most of my generation, I was brought up. I brought up on the saying, "Satan finds some mischief for idle hands to do." Fascinating. Being a highly virtuous child, I believed all that I was told and acquired a conscience, which has kept me working hard down to the present moment. But although my conscience has controlled my actions, my opinions have undergone a revolution. I think that there is far too much work done in the world, that immense harm is caused by the belief that work is virtuous, and that what needs to be preached in modern industrial countries is quite different from what always has been preached. Everyone knows the story of the traveler in Naples who saw 12 beggars lying in the sun. It was before the days of Mussolini, which is interesting because in 1930, Mussolini was just like it was clearly things were going awry, and offered a lira to the laziest of them. 11 of them jumped up to claim it, so he gave it to the 12th. This traveler was on the right lines, but in countries which do not enjoy Mediterranean sunshine, idleness is more difficult, and a great public propaganda will be required to inaugurate it. I hope that after reading the following pages, the leaders of the YMCA will start a campaign to induce young men to do nothing. If so, I shall not have lived in vain. It's a little cheeky line there. It's kind of so before I'm just going to read another paragraph and then we kind of discuss. And I know we all have to kind of collectively leave soon, but before advancing my own arguments for laziness, I must dispose of one which I cannot accept. Whenever a person who already has enough to live on proposes to engage in some everyday kind of job, such as school teaching or typing, he or she is told that such conduct takes the bread out of other people's mouths and therefore is wicked. If this argument was valid, it would only be necessary for all of us to be idle in order that we should all have our mouths full of bread. What people who say such things forget is that what a man earns, he usually spends, and in spending, he gives employment. This is what we talked about earlier. As long as a man spends his income, he puts just as much bread in people's mouths in spending as he takes out of other people's mouths in earning. The real villain from this point of view is the man who saves. Fascinating. That's a really fascinating point.
Yeah.
If he merely puts his savings in a stocking like the proverbial French peasant, it is obvious that they do not give employment. If he invests his savings, the matter is less obvious and different cases arise. So that's a very interesting point, which is in kind of what you were saying earlier. It's like if you're getting money, spend your money because that provides a self-worth and value to the other people. One of the commonest things to do with savings is to lend them to the government. A view of the fact that the bulk of the public expenditure of most civilized governments consists in payments for past years for preparation to future wars. The man who lends his money to the government is in the same position as the bad man in Shakespeare who hires murderers. The net result of the man's economic habits is to increase the armed forces of the state, into which he lends his savings. Obviously, it would be better he spent his money, even if he spent it in drink and gambling.
Ooh.
Man, Bertrand Russell coming out with some hot takes.
It's kind of a slow slavery. That's what he's.
Yeah.
Well, it's slow slavery, but also the idea that the act of saving is contributing. Yeah, it's complicity with the government's ability to like buy fucking bullshit for war.
Yeah, like if we think about it along these lines, like, are we immoral for paying taxes? Because think of where that money goes. A lot of damage is done with that money.
You can definitely make that argument that I don't want my money going to blowing up kids' weddings in Afghanistan. I mean, I think that feels like a worthy argument to make, I think.
Yeah, like how there were conscientious objectors to like the draft. We should be conscientious objectors to the IRS.
I think everybody would easily get on board of that. If you led that charge, you would be assassinated by next Friday. Your car would explode.
Bring it on, guys. Those are years I wouldn't be spending working.
this is one of those interesting ideas that I think that has kind of floated around the philosophical world a bit, which is like, how do we better track our tax money, right? And I think because this is this is an interesting model of like if you spend your taxes and someone and the government goes, okay, elect where you want your taxes to go, right? And you're gonna have some people who go, the armed forces, I want my to be protected, and some people are gonna be like highways and fucking teachers unions and shit. And it'll be that would be a really interesting way to better understand not only how your money is being spent, or kind of like really further democratize.
Yeah, like what are citizens' priorities?
Yeah, and I think we also, I mean, we're so, I mean, this is one of those things that is like a pretty powerful localized government idea. Like I would actually like that. That's a really cool idea for like a mayor or something, right?
Yeah.
Where if you have a mayor of like a middle-sized town or city or whatever, you go, cool. We're trying a new thing every year. Like we have 45,000 people who live in this town, right? We spend our taxes this very specific way. We want to start giving people the chance to tell us where our taxes are actually going. So when you do your auditing at the end of the year, when you're submitting taxes or something, I don't know how the system would work. Like we're gonna let you tell us where you want your taxes to go from these 9 different boxes, right?
Yeah.
And and at the end of it, we're gonna be like, we've noticed some interesting trends, right? And I think that's an I mean, we're kind of getting away from we are and we aren't getting away from the idleness of work, because I think that this gets to an interesting thing, which is being an active participant in the purpose of your job, right? Which is, I think, the reason this is so important. I think it kind of circumvents the idleness thing a bit on this one, but the point about the military spending, I think, is really interesting, which is like, Bertrand Russell is essentially saying it's okay to work, but it's not okay to save, because by the act of working, you're creating the opportunity to spend that money on people and on ideas that can then benefit these other people and give them a sense of livelihood and give them the opportunity to be idle themselves. But it's not okay. And mind you as well, this was just before the Second World War, right? So this is right at the time where Bertrand Russell's like, dude, the act of giving money to the government is the opportunity for them to go to war, and we can't fucking have that shit,
Yeah.
So it's crazy, very interesting.
I like it.
We're just kind of breaching this. I know we have to go to preschool now. We all three of us have to go to preschool.
Learning
so
numbers.
We're gonna close this one off. We're kind of raising the next generation.
One quote from one of the articles that I'll leave you guys with, and I got to run. But what was once a human being is now an employee, in the same way that was once a pig is now a pork chop. Our lives disappear, spent like the money for which we trade them. Depressing. Don't be a pork chop, people.
Don't be a pork chop.
Don't let these fat suckers eat you.
Don't be a sheep chop. I know we kind of, we got a little distracted in this one, but that's okay. We like to do that sometimes. This just gives you some homework. We do think this is a pretty important sub. We're probably not going to talk about this one again for a minute. We might circle back to it at some point, but
we're going conspiracy next week.
Oh, we got to go deep on conspiracies. But I think that this is this, like I had mentioned, I think this is kind of one of those things where it's if you're into leftist thinking, or if you are kind of trying to find if you're the kind of person who's trying to find better solutions, anti-work is an interesting option. That's what's nice about these articles. The other articles listed, for anybody who is actually not on the sub right now, the other articles that are brought up, let's see if I can find them.
Later, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Peace. Later, dude.
Peace. So the other articles that are listed are The Abolition of Work by Bob Black, in The Right to be Lazy by Paul Lafargue, and The Mythology of Work by Crime Inc. We actually went through The Mythology of Work last week, so that one's a little redundant. So there are 2 others, and then also on January 12th, 2021, so next Monday, Tuesday, there's going to be an AMA with the social psychologist Dr. Devin Price, author of the upcoming book "Laziness Does Not Exist," and it's based on an essay that that Devin wrote, or Dr. Price wrote. That is on, where is it? And we'll put some of this stuff in our subreddit, by the way. It's on Human Parts. It's a Human Parts medium that they have, which is a very popular medium. So get into it. Think about why you work. Spend money on nice fishing poles from local fishing shops.
Don't be a pork chop.
Don't be a pork chop. This is Did You Reddit, a weekly podcast about the internet by way of Reddit, the front page of the internet. My name is It's Your Dad.
I'm Dog Boobs, and that was free day.
Free day. My free day. Had to go to preschool, to door preschool. We'll be back next week, probably talking about conspiracies in the fall of American democracy. Peace.